Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well. I am just getting things set up and then I will get an actual screen in front of you all. And a camera as well. I'm getting that set up as well. But while I do that, I'll tell you what we're going to do. So my original plan for the day kind of got fucked, which is that I took today off from work because over a month ago I saw that Fate Samurai Remnant was coming out today. And I was very excited and I was like, cool, I'm going to take the day off and I'm going to play it and I'm going to stream it all day. And it's going to be wonderful, which is what I told you all I was going to do last time, or yesterday, rather. But Steam, in its infinite wisdom here. Oh, interesting. Why am I... Oh, right, because that's... Steam, in their infinite wisdom here, says that a game is coming on a day, and it doesn't include important information, like the fact that this doesn't come out until either 8 or 9 o'clock. I don't know which, but either way it's annoying, which means I don't get to see my homegirl Cersei for a while, which is real sad because I like her quite a bit. So while we wait for that, we're going to do some programming. Specifically, I was having a chat with a friend of mine in Discord, and we were talking about all sorts of fun things, and I was getting started on a new project in here, which I will now show you the bare bones of it. And we were talking about the text, and there was an idea to get the scrolly effect going. So if you've ever played a visual novel, you know that typically like the text down in the bottom section goes like, think Ace Attorney, right? Like one letter at a time, kind of rolls out at a fixed pace. So I want to do that. And I was thinking about how to do it and thinking that we could puzzle it out together for like a half hour or maybe more, depending on how well my brain functions today, as well as how quickly Samurai Remnant unlocks. Because once that unlocks, we're going to go do that. But this is my crappy little project that I started putting together, and we're going to figure this out, and it's going to be great. So I have at least 3 ideas in my head around how we're going to do this. But first, let me tell you how it's working currently, how the text is being displayed. So we're doing the usual thing that we're doing in the tutorial, which is using the font object within the game that we set up, this bitmap font, which by default is Arial. And we're using just that regular old thing, giving it over to the rendering pipeline and telling it to render out text at a specific location. We're going to need to do a little bit more than that. Specifically, in order to get text to animate, right, we're going to have to do something similar to what we did in our other project around what we did with the raindrop, essentially, right? Where kind of we can code in this update function that takes in the same delta between time frames and kind of iterates or increments, I should say, or accumulates is better, accumulates the delta and uses that to determine how much of the text should be displayed or not. So we're probably going to do something like that. And that's the rough idea for today's little coding adventure, let's call it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new class, and I'm going to call it scrolling text. Although I don't really... Scrolling isn't the right word, but the right word is not coming to mind, unfortunately for me. So this is going to have a private field. Yeah, we'll have a private field of the text to display, obviously, which is going to be a string. And then the other things that we're going to need, I suppose, is the text speed, perhaps. So let's do something like int, or no, I guess it'll be a float, right? Yeah, sure. We'll figure it out later, right? And we're gonna have taken the text, and we're gonna take in the text to display, and the text speed, and we're gonna take that in because, you know, if you think about a visual novel, a lot of the time, like, there's a kind of a standard text speed, and then like they have dramatic effects, right? Where it's like right, and it comes out slower, sort of stuff. So I'm gonna do that. So we'll just, do the usual Pojo type business. And then let's make ourselves a nice little update function, void update. Right? And this will take in the delta time and it will do something, right? This is what we need to figure out. And then the other thing that we're going to do here is we're going to make a public function that returns a string and say get text to display. And this isn't going to return that, it's going to return the snippet of text that should be displayed. Okay, so for now, we're going to return the text display, but to-do wise, we'll say, figure this out. Because I'm thinking, we might end up doing something like text display split, or not split, sorry, splice. Ooh, there's no splice in Java, is there? But there is something, I know there is. Get chars, there we go. Source end, source begin, and a whole bunch of other things. So there's stuff. I feel like there's substring, that's what I want. So we'll probably end up using the substring to grab things out. And whether I think either way, we'll be recomputing this a lot. So we'll see what we can do. But this will probably end up being something like, give me this to, for now we'll say length, right? And it'll be that. But theoretically, this isn't always going to be this index. That index is going to be determined by the update function, right? So let's have this class do its thing. And since I don't feel like setting up a new screen and et cetera, we're going to make crappy visual novel turn into one of these so that when you load it, it scrolls. So, all right, let's go to the starting screen. And then we'll do this. So we'll have a scrolling text, and this will be our title text. Also, the music is the same as last time. By the way, it is the Noiseless World playlist that I had before, because it's quite enjoyable. So we're going to keep enjoying that, essentially. So moving right along. So when we create our world the first time, we're going to set our thing up, and we'll go ahead and do it right here. And we'll say this equals new scrolling text of crappy visual novel. Right, is that what I called it? Already forgotten. Crappy visual novel, yes. So we'll do that. We'll not have that set. So we'll do that. We're probably also going to need to do a couple other things around this, but we'll get there. So we're going to say that that is that, and then go down and replace some of these other things we're doing, specifically this part, with this dot thingy get text to display, and we'll say, this is my title text, and then we will replace both of these bits with that. And I feel like theoretically we could, if we wanted to mix and match things together, maybe we could push this glyph stuff into that class, but it kind of breaks the separation of like a regular kind of model that doesn't have any rendering specific stuff in it to this. Like there's no font dot set thing or new glyph, etc. that is aware of stuff. Like I don't need to know what the game is in order to have scrolling text, for example, right now because of the separation. And I kind of want to keep it that way until we see a good reason not to do that. And the text should behave as appropriate. So if I run this, it's going to look exactly the same as soon as I do stuff. And so let's say, we haven't really decided what our speed means. But let's say essentially it will be, give me a new letter every half a second or something. That's really slow still, but it should be fine. Also, I've realized that we've called this that, and I want it to be a float. So, cool. Moving right along. So let's say that, and now if I run it this time, it will be there again, right? The only difference is that the text is now coming from inside that class. So before we do this, where's our cool thing that I literally was just on? Before we get the text, right? Let's call the update function. Oops, sorry. Here. Here we go. So let's say update delta, right? And that's void, so we don't have to assign anything from it. But we need to update it before we call get text to display because that will change things, right? So let's pop down into here and start figuring out what we want to do. So obviously there's no such thing as a float index into an array, right? So we need an int, which is, I'm going to call this display up to this index. Very verbose name, but it's going to start at 0. And then what we'll do is every delta, we will increase by this, right? And once the accumulator is greater than our text speed, we're going to do a very naive implementation to see if it works or not. Once our accumulator is greater than our text speed, then we will assume that we should go up in index. And we should also set our accumulator to 0, right? And then at the very end of all this, or rather even before this, if our index is equal to our text display's length -1, aka have we already gotten to the end of the line, then we don't need to do anything, right? We can just return. Call it a day. We're good. Otherwise, though, we'll keep accumulating, doing our thing, resetting the accumulator, and et cetera, right? So now all I need to do is, rather than this length, I'll put this in there, and then we'll play. We'll see if this works or if we get horrible errors. There we go. Crap. Visual novel. Right? And as you can see, we're kind of being, there's a lot to benefit from here with the way that this library is doing the thing that's doing. So specifically, if we look at the desktop launcher, right, we have the foreground set to 60 FPS, which means that theoretically it's calling our render function 60 times a second, right? Because we should be having 60 frames per second and it wants to render each, et cetera, and so it's doing its thing. It's the target framework though, so it doesn't necessarily mean that it's always going to be that much, which is one of the reasons why we accumulate to make sure. But it does mean that essentially this text speed, if we set it to 1, is 1 bit per second, right? And it's not going to do anything else that's interesting. But we could say that maybe we don't want that. Maybe we want it faster because that was really slow. So instead of 0.5, right, we could say I want 4 per second. And then it's a bit faster, right? Crappy visual novel. Still feels a bit slow, right? In comparison to what you would probably normally expect. But this is also something that you could control theoretically, right? Like, we could do something like this. So let's make a new variable. And we'll call it text speed. And we'll set it by default to 0.50, I guess. Is that what I had put just now? Okay, yeah. And then in a lot of visual novels, when you read, if you click and hold, it goes faster, right? So we could try to implement that here as well. So let's go ahead and make some changes to do that. Before we do, I just want to see how quickly this 0.15 is. Oh yeah, that's way better. That seems like a very normal amount. But let's say that we want to control this, which means that our scrolling text now needs to be able to deal with that, right? And we could deal with that in two ways. One, we either move the text speed into the update so that we can change it there as need be, which would be fine. Or we do something like this, right? And we don't always have to recompute it, but we could say set text speed. And this would be very simple, right? Oops. Very simple, I say, as I fail. And this needs to be a void. So there we go. We can now set our text speed dynamically. So if I go into my starting screen, and if we do something, and again, this is kind of ruining my, this is slightly ruining some stuff, but it's okay. So we go to gdx inputs dot is touched, which means that someone just clicked. And we can say this text speed will be, let's make constants for this. Let's say text speed fast. Otherwise, text speed normal. Right? So let's create these. And these probably wouldn't be in starting screen. We'd probably put these in like real variables or something. This is probably gonna be super duper fast. Let's continue our merry way. And I'm gonna go ahead, take that, put that, and go ahead and kill this. And we'll just use text speed normal instead for our scrolling stuff. And then down here, we'll have text speed normal, et cetera, right? And this will theoretically, assuming I haven't messed up, allow me to click and it goes faster. Ta-da! Easy. Now let's do this a different way. Let's make one that's a bit longer in text, because it's a little bit hard to see exactly, right? So let me think here. Also, I'm vibing, and also like, you know, sitting here praying that this thing unlocks, because I want to play it. Damn it! Like, stop this. The thing that annoys me the most about this, by the way, is the fact that at like 1 o'clock or so, I could open up YouTube and find like Japanese VTubers streaming the game already, and it's like, why don't you give me the game that I want? Anyway, let's continue making a visual novel. So I guess I'll do what I said that I wasn't going to do, which is make the next screen, essentially. So let's go ahead and do that. So new class file, and let's call this, let's see, this is starting screen. Let's call this like reading screen. I don't know what else to call this. Yeah, I haven't thought like this far ahead quite yet. Namely because, you know, oops, not game. This will be visual novel game. Visual novel game. Of course, this dot game equals game, and that's probably fine. We have implement methods to do. Also, it's not extends. I keep getting that because Scala. That's what I'm more used to. Which theoretically, you can actually write Libgdx stuff in Scala. Fun fact. And I'm tempted to do it, honestly. But, all right. Thank you. Give me my things. So we shall need a camera, which we shall call camera. And it's going to be this dot camera equals new orthographic camera. And we'll also need a viewport, which will be a new fit viewport, which we will have the same stuff as before. So I was trying to wiggle around. I should move these to some constants, I think, honestly. Because everything's going to be the same, I think. Let's call this constants. And this is going to be, honestly, it's going to be a public static class. Although, did I just put that in the wrong place? Not allowed. Make constants not static. But why? Public static. Oh, sorry. Yeah, wrong place. And noodles. Let me just move this around a bit. I'm just going to do this. Make you static. Static. And then for the sake of brevity, I'm going to just do equals constants, please. World width. And I bet you the IDE will complain about this. And if it doesn't, I'd be a little bit surprised. But I wouldn't be surprised if it offers to give us like refactor so-and-so or something. What's your issue? Right. Anyway, so this is going to be constants world width and constants world height, and then give it a camera. So, and that should be fine. We just need to import some things from bad logic, etc. And we also need to make the viewport field inside here. Seems legit. And these can all be privates and also final. There's no reason not to have them be final. We won't be changing them. And yada, yada, yada. We'll have this dot viewport dot update width height. And it can center thing. How goes the scroll? Also, if I click and hold the mouse, boop, it goes faster. Ta-da! Yeah, it wasn't, it worked out pretty much exactly how I thought it was going to, which is good. So I can walk you through it if you want real quick. I made myself a nice little class to model the information that I need. So it's called scrolling text. There's a better word than scrolling, but I can't think of what it is. Because like when I say scrolling, I think of like, you know, credit scroll. I mean, it's horizontal scroll, I guess. But like, is there a better word for that? But anyway, I called it scrolling text. So it's got text to display, a speed, an internal accumulator, as well as keeping track of what index it should display up to in the overall text. This is probably not memory efficient, by the way, as far as some of the stuff, but regular old constructor, nothing crazy going on there. I allow for setting the text speed, which allows me to click and set it to the fast speed. The update method that I'm calling from the like render step for every frame, essentially. If we are already displaying the maximum amount of characters, then we don't need to do anything. Otherwise, I'm just accumulating the time since the last render. And then if it happens to be bigger than my set text speed, then we go up one index and then reset the accumulator. And then the calling code that wants to display text asks for the text to display, which just uses the substring method to grab out the appropriate text string. Which this part here is probably inefficient to some extent, because if we wanted it to be like micro optimization stuff and make Nuth, yeah, Nuth is the guy who says that premature optimization is the root of all evil, right? If we wanted to make him upset, then we could probably convert this into I don't know, an array, a buffer, a stack, and like only add a character like from it. It's like flip it on its head, right? Like start off with basically a single character array, and then every time we accumulate, add the next text from this onto it. But yeah, aren't strings just character underneath the hood? Yes, but in Java they are an actual object type, like they are their own thing. You can get the characters. I think I probably scrolled by it already. No, I can get the bytes even. But it's not quite the same as like C++. Yeah, 2K array. So like they are their own object, which is why this is inefficient, because this substring constructs an entirely new object. So if I was being smart, or actually here, this is how I would optimize it, I guess. We'd make a string builder. Oh, there's one. Oh, I'm curious why they made their own. Can I know why? Hold on. What is it? Control click? Yeah. Why did they do this? I'm very curious why do they have their own version of the string builder? Array copy. Oh. I guess they just wanted some new stuff. Huh. I wonder if there's a blog post about this. I'm really curious why they implemented their own string builder. Because I know that there's string builder and string buffer, and I bet you if I... Want to tell me? String buffer is thread safe and synchronized, where string builder is not. There we go. String builder is faster than string buffer. Oh, that explains part of that. And it also answers the question of which one I want to use. I guess I'll use theirs, I suppose. I'm going to assume there's a reason for it. So, you know, to show. And essentially, we would do this dot to show. That's a terrible name. It goes new string builder. And does their constructor take in a predefined initial capacity? It can. Great. So we can set that, because then we won't have to do any expensive resize operations. So we'd say text display.length and say give us that many. I'm just going to call this, string builder. Two shows, kind of annoying. But anyway, what we would do, right, is say string builder dot append, and then take our text to display character at display up to this index, right? We do have to prime the pump on this though, because this is gonna immediately do the other one unless I do it here. Otherwise we'd skip the first character, right? But I could do that, and then instead of doing the substring and taking the existing string and then slicing off a piece of this and creating a new object in memory to return, we would do string builder to string, right? And this has no actual functional change. It's still the same. It's just technically more efficient. Technically. But that is a micro optimization that I don't think we would have to do, honestly, especially for a visual novel game. Like, I feel like if you're leaking memory in a visual novel, you're doing something wrong. But anyway, yeah, so that's that, right? So that's the model class. Sorry, we optimize things. And then, oops, whoa, why did I lose my, please. Oh God, what did I click that just did that? Thank you, sorry, I'm used to having like this tiny little window here now, so it feels weird when it goes away. But yeah, so in our starting screen text code here, we have the scrolling title text. And then when we construct it, we say crappy visual novel, and we set the text speed to normal, which is a constant that I have yet to refactor to the constants file. But it is set to go to about every 0.15 frames, essentially. But this roughly works out. If I do this, It is slow as dirt. It is essentially every second one letter, right? Which is awful. Like, no one likes this. Everyone would always click. So, and if I do like 0.5, it's about, 1 or 2, or about half a second every character, right? So this is saying that I want a character every 0.15 seconds, roughly speaking. I think that's what this translates to. It's probably wrong. I'm probably incorrectly interpreting my own code, but let's ignore that because it works pretty well. So magic numbers, ahoy. Anyway, so there's the title text, and then down in the render function itself, if you are holding down the mouse, if the input is touched in the head, then it is fast. If it is not, it is normal. And then further down where we are actually setting the text here, this little batch of stuff here, I'm drawing my background for that. This green square right here is being drawn by this, and then the font text is being made slightly larger. So I'm actually scaling the text up 2 times, which you can see here. This is 2 times as big as this text down here. And then it's set to white. I am updating it, so I'm calling that title text.update. And then I'm getting the text to display, and then just telling the glyph layout to have that as its text, and then drawing this accordingly to et cetera, et cetera. And I've already told you this, Drake Spartan, in Discord, but for the sake of the stream understanding, the glyph layout stuff is how we are centering this text. So you can see that the start reading, as well as this stuff itself, right, is centered in the middle of their buttons, right? And that is being done by using the glyph layout. So the glyph layout, you give it the text that it's supposed to be having, as well as the font that it is using. And then at that point, you can query the glyph layout class to ask for how wide or how high the actual glyphs, the actual characters themselves are for the overall thing, which allows us to center it, right? Because then when we pass X and Y to the draw function, we can tell it, in this case, right, at the point for, let's do the title screen one, I guess. So like world height divided by 2 minus the height of that thing. So it ends up right there, or it ends up in the middle exactly. And then for the Y, world height minus 15% minus half the height of the text. And that roughly gets you in the center. Though this one, the top one, I think is a little bit off, but this one looks good. So, but yeah, it was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. I'm not going to lie. I thought I was going to have to struggle with this a little bit longer. So, Sasuga, watashi. Good job, me. But since we have more time to kill, I suppose we can make the next screen. Because once you click on start, then we need to actually start reading our novel, I suppose. So the reading screen is what we're working on next. So we're going to have an image to display, right? So there's going to be a texture, background texture, which will be think visual novels. There's always the background text, and then you have the characters in the foreground if they're talking or whatever, as well as the text itself. So we kind of have two or three different bits. So there's probably going to be a background texture. There will be a character texture, or let's do text box texture. I don't know if I want to try to make talking heads at this particular moment, though we could take advantage of the fact that we have animation code and assets to make Pecora go om nom nom, and we could use her as our protagonist in our visual novel talking if we really wanted to, right? But I'm going to skip that for now. I'm really only concerned with making the box and those things for the text, as well as just having a space for the background. So let's call that. Trying to think if there's anything else we need. We could have we could have like the current text to display, I suppose. Well, I don't know. Maybe we want Picora to be one of the dating options in whatever hell game we're making. I don't know. I'm thinking back to like, what was it, like a year and a half ago, I think, where I had that idea. It was when I was still taking Japanese classes. But I had the idea of like making a learn Japanese game that would be like your tsundere girlfriend moved to Japan and she speaks Japanese but you don't, and so she's always pissed at you, so you have to learn Japanese to make her like you so she doesn't ditch you while you're in Japan and you're stuck and homeless in a foreign country or something. So like she teaches you it or something like that. You know, waifu education. Waifucation. Waifucation. I can't think of a good word, but you get what I'm saying, right? We could have something like that. Let's see. So let's have, this will be current text, which is going to display. See, waification like sounds, I don't know. Waification sounds like you're like converting someone into your waifu. It doesn't sound like education for, or educations for wives. I don't know. This doesn't work quite so well. I feel like we're going down a path. It's going to result in me saying things that will be taken out of context. But yeah, so this will be the box at the bottom of the screen. Then we'll have the current text button. Soon to learn. That's pretty good. It's funny though. Soonjication. Soonderication. No, it still sounds like a fetish word. I can't like. It would just have to be called something. We could name it like an isekai, right? My tsundere girlfriend can't teach me Japanese fast enough, or something. Just a long ass novel title. That current text. We'd probably also need current speaker text. Whoops. And this would just be a string. Let me show you what I'm thinking in mind, I guess. Oh god, that's bright. I apologize for how bright this is. But essentially, right, let me use colors for this. So the background texture, right, is essentially the entire thing, right? So let's call that the background texture. And then the text box, solid color fill, please. Let's use horrendous green for this. Is essentially like down here, right? Should we make it have a border? We could make it have a border. Anyway, but it's essentially like the bottom fourth, maybe? Bottom fifth of the screen, roughly, is that? And then you need to know who's talking, right? So we'll end up having a little like speaker box attached to this, right? And maybe it'll be rendered above it, maybe it'll be rendered directly in it, but probably like above it, right, is where it is most of the time. And if we do end up having, you know, kind of slots for rendering protagonists. Sorry, I didn't realize I still had that thing. Let's say this is probably like, what, a sixth or fifth of the screen maybe in our real world thing. But for our various protagonists or people speaking, right, it's probably possible to have more than one of them speak at once. So you need at least 2 slots. But if you wanted to, like, you know, make them bounce along or do something fun, who knows? Maybe we'd have like 3 possible slots where you could kind of render the various characters on the screen besides the background, you know, because remember the entire background is one texture, so there could be something there. But like that, roughly speaking, is what I would imagine we would end up with to some extent. You need at least 2 because it would be kind of weird if you didn't have 2 people there, though there are plenty of visual novels that really just have like one big block like that, right? And then your childhood best friend who's secretly in love with you, she's like OMG, I love you so much. Look at my little ribbon, right? She's there, and she's like, please hang out with me. She looks like she's about to fight, but she was supposed to be doing this, being cute. But anyway, that's essentially the layout, right? So let's agree, decent layout idea for our visual novel code. So we have the current text, the current speaker text, the text box itself, which we might add a border to, right? This is the waifu. This is the tsundere. We'll make her angrier. There. Now she's a tsundere. She's mad at you, but she still loves you. That's how you know. So there's the current speaker box, that, and etc. So, yeah, I like the idea of having a border, I will say, because it feels like it'd probably be a little bit better. The other thing that we can do, and what I've seen in some visual novels before, right, is like you have kind of the gray box underneath and then like opacity, like a slightly opaque thing instead, and that's where the text gets drawn. But either would work, right? We don't need to be too crazy about it. We just need to get the details in here. So, let's do our thing. Also, I need to make sure that I'm disposing of everything. Am I disposing of everything properly? Probably not. Oh no, we got one hella memory leak. All right, one moment, please. Yep. I don't know if I need to dispose of the camera, but I know at the very least, textures must be disposed of. So let's make sure we dispose of that, because we are going to be throwing the starting screen aside. Right? I think it's only the textures. Do I need to dispose? Nope. Camera and viewport are not disposable. So no worries there. Double check. Viewport, camera. I don't think the color is disposable. Oh, yeah, well, not. That's not. I don't think it is. Sorry, this was the class itself. It doesn't look like it implements anything like that. Nope, it doesn't have dispose. And the rectangles, I don't think are disposable either. It's serializable, but I'm pretty sure this is just a, yeah, it's just a Pojo kind of deal. So, moving right along. We've got things disposable, and then where's my thing? Where I'm looking for it. I'm just there. It is. If button collision contains. So we want this. It's hovering. If GDX input is touched, they clicked inside the button is what this means. Then we're gonna make a new reading screen. Pass the game in. And then dispose of ourselves. Good. So, oh wait, and I think, do we need to do like this.game.set screen? Yes. We do this. Now this is how we did it in the tutorial. Like we just make the object and pass it along and then kill ourselves. I assume this is okay, but it feels a little smelly to me, honestly. Like it feels weird that this screen instantiates the other screen as opposed to having like that happen higher up here, you know, as opposed to kind of telling this thing to swap to the other screen. You know what I mean? It feels a little weird. So that's probably a lesson for another day, and we'd have to do some research to figure it out. But I don't know. I could be wrong, but it feels wrong to do it this way. But I'm going to put that aside so that we can make progress. So I was setting up the camera, the viewport, etc. We also need to set up our various textures and things like that. For now, let's call this BG Pix Map. So I'm going to make a Pix Map, which is just going to be a color. So set the color. I found out something very important about this. These floats, by the way, are out of 255. So you don't put like 233, 232, 233 if that's like the hex code that you would want. You need to write out of 255, out of 255, out of 255 if you want to use those for this. Just an FYI, something I learned today that I figured I would share. Anyway, here's that. And then the BG texture, we create the texture, we pass it the Pix map, and that will result in a square. And this needs the drawing mode. Which I don't remember what it is, so we're going to refer back. It is... Oh, right. We need the width, height, and format. Okay. Width, height, and format. And let's think about what this is. So this is our background, which means it is very simple. It's going to have the same width as our world, same height as our world, and it will have that Pixmat format, yada yada. So one big blob. And then we have that. And what I'm going to do to make my life easier is I'm going to move this dispose function up next to the create, because in my mind it's easier to make sure that we are doing what we are supposed to do with disposing of resources if they are directly next to each other. So we are instantiate something, we remember to immediately get rid of it. So moving right along, that's our background. We also want our blob, but before I do that, let's render it. So let's do this .game.batch begin. After we do the camera update and viewport apply. And then this .game update, this game batch .set projection matrix is the camera combined. And then whenever a batch begins, it must also end. As you can tell, I'm a fan of like closing your ship before you start writing things in it so that you don't forget. Makes life easier. I feel like IDEs take care of a lot of that nowadays, where if you type an if statement and you do this, typically it generates the brackets for you, or braces rather. But anyway, and then we're just gonna do this .game.batch.draw. Draw me the texture, a BG texture at 0, 0, because it is the full ass thing. There. So let's run this. Because now we have our crappy visual novel, and I click on start read. Behold, I get a gray blocks. So look at that, it's working, right? And to prove to you that it is working, we'll change this color. And it changes. So beautiful, right? Theoretically, we would not have this be just a color, right? We'd probably load a beautiful, tranquil background of some variety. I don't have that asset right now. We could make it, but I'm just trying to get the blobs going. So let's move on to our next part, which let's do the text block area, because that's good. So we need current speaker texture. This is kind of like the current speaker background texture. Anyway, let's continue. So we're gonna do the text box texture next, and this is gonna be super similar, except that we're gonna need to think harder about the thing. So let's make a Pix map. It is going to be set to what color? I don't know. What's a good color for this? What's a good color for the background, honestly, for now? Like, I know it's garish at the moment, but I suppose I could make it purple. What is this lovely periwinkle color? Can I see what that is? 200, 191, 231. Did I say 131 at the end? And what was it, 191? Let's see how close I was. 200, 191, 231. I was close. I got a little bit confused, that's all. Yeah. Cool. All right. So the hard part here, of course, right, is that the width of this isn't the full width, right? We want like a little bit of bordering, kind of. But because it isn't guaranteed to always be this 1080 by 720 that I have the current texture to be, and you can resize it, etc. We want to make sure that we kind of start out with percentages. So I think maybe like a 5% buffer on each side, so there's a total of 10% lost across it, would be enough. So we'll say that the width is world width times 0.9, right? 90. And then the height, I think I said a fifth. Is that what I said earlier? Roughly a fifth. We could probably have it a little bit higher. We could go a fourth. I feel like that might be too aggressive. If you think about like a fourth of your screen being gone. So maybe a fifth is a little bit better. So let's say that the height is a fifth. And then it's going to do the same thing. That lovely, lovely bit. I've done something wrong. What have I done wrong? They had to be ints, which is fine. Go ahead and cast those to ints. Thanks. Okay. And then for our color here, gray sounds fine, honestly. Like this gray would probably be good, which is just 127 across the board. Sounds good. So let's do 127. Wow, that's disgusting spelling. I don't know. Someone's smoking something gross outside and it just like wafted. Very unpleasant when that happens. While I do love having like central air conditioning kind of stuff and whatnot that keeps my apartment cool, it does mean occasionally weird smells from other people's apartments waft through. So, all right, but this is going to be text box, and I don't like the fact that this is only text box. I would prefer that it there it is text box pixmap. Okay, so that's that, and then we can render it, right? So we'll render it. We'll say this.game.batch.draw the text box. And like I said, I want to draw it 5% in. So let's take our constants, world width, multiplied by 0.5 f. And we probably also want it to be, slightly in from the height as well. So let's see if 5% looks good there as well, shall we? So do this, click, and it's not there. What have I done? I've done something wrong. What have I done wrong? Let's see. Well, it feels right. What am I missing? Set color isn't using an F. Ah, you're right. So it's giving it 0 for everything, which is probably making it do some weird shit. Still don't see it. Still very periwinkle in here. Oh, I forgot. Dot fill. There it is. Told it what color, didn't tell it to actually fill everything up. There we go. That's not bad. I kind of think we could drop it down even more. Like it could be a total of 5%, and we could do 2.5%, essentially across the sides. It looks okay, but like I feel like we could give more room to text if we wanted to, right? So let's modify that a little bit. So this text map instead of this will be this, and then in here we'll do this. And I actually don't know about the Y. The Y might have been okay. Yeah, this looks better, I think, overall. I mean, it's 2 boxes, but you know, like it feels a little bit better. It could maybe almost be taller, but we'll see. All right, so next thing I want to do is we can either... Let's finish the layout before we dive into trying to render text, I guess. So let's put the speaker box in place. So very similar, once again. This is essentially a background for the actual text stuff, right? So then let's do pixmap again, and let's call this speaker pixmap. That's the terrible name. Let's call this speaker box speaker name pixmap. Would be good. And this will be a new pixmap as per usual. And then it'll be an integer, and its width will be, what did I say, a sixth earlier? Roughly speaking. Actually, that's almost a quarter, I think. So let's give it a quarter. So we'll say that it's a quarter of the overall screen, which feels like a lot to me, but we'll see what that shakes out to. So constants, and its height is going to be pretty damn small. Like it really only needs to be like 1 line height, which I don't know how big that is. We could use a glyph layout to query that, because that is a function on that. It would probably be better to define these boxes in terms of line height, honestly. But I don't know. I don't know how to deal with that yet. So I'm going to just keep eyeballing things and say, you know, we'll make the boxes as big as they can be and then try to figure things out from there. That said, height-wise, it's about like roughly a third of the height of the text box, right? So if this is the height of the text box, we can just not think and just multiply it by 3. Oh, sorry, not by 3. Divide it by 3. So let's make sure we get our operands correctly. So that'll be that. And then I'm going to copy this so I don't have to remember everything. And this is going to be speaker, current speaker BD texture. I think speaker name is actually a better bit for this. What is it? Shift of 6 on this. Speaker name texture. Did that actually work? Yes, it did. Good. Okay. So let's do that. Speaker name, yada, yada, yada. And then this should be the same color, essentially. Like, one would imagine that maybe you could put a border around it kind of thing, or like the overall thing could have a border and then you fill it in, but it's the same color. So the next part will be the interesting bit where we tell it to render it. So tell it to render it. It should be at the same X coordinate as our current thing, but its height will be different, because its height And I might expend this a little bit because I want to do a little bit of math, and it feels gross if we don't have enough space to do math. So it's constants dot world height times 0.025 f. We could also put all these in constants so we can tweak them like easier all at once without having to change a bunch of things, which we should do. But is the world height, and this, our orthogonal camera counts from the bottom. This dot camera dot, is it not that? Is it the viewport I'm doing? Set 2? What am I thinking of? There's like a set to orthographic thing somewhere. I know we used it before. Camera set to ortho. There it is. Okay, that's what I want. I just want to make sure that's done. Which I assume like it should be done like, you know, automatically if you're using an orthographic camera, but all the tutorials had it set. Oh, that doesn't have it because I just have generic camera. If I do this, then it has it. Yeah. All right. So our camera does not have wide down. Like it's not counting from the top of the screen downwards. It's counting from the top up. Let's run this to make sure that what I just added in doesn't do fascinating and interesting things. No. Okay, we're good. It's been that way all along. So my assumption was correct. But anyway, so the Y is going to be the world height. Right. The world height plus the height of the other bit, which we can get. Beautiful. Yep, that works. So maybe I didn't really need to drop it down to do math, and that math would be, you know, okay. Have I mentioned that I really hate IDEs that like fuck with your formatting and spacing after the fact? Really irritating. Anyway, let's get that rendered. There we go. Look at this. Beautiful. It's coming together real nice. Look at that. Practically looks exactly like we needed it to. All right, so then let's get the speaker box going. So if we follow this along, we're probably not going to have it flush against the sides of the screen and those things, right? Instead, we'll probably put like 2.5% spacing around these edges. I don't think we need to put... We don't want spacing there. But yeah, it's so annoying. Like, it gives me the same level of frustration as like an unfair Dark Souls boss combo. Like, which is hard to find because most Dark Souls bosses are very fair. But like shitty Souls-likes that don't do it correctly, that have like bosses that have like ridiculous amounts of stun locks that just exist to frustrate you. It's the same kind of thing. It's programmer stun locking. That's what that is. Hold up. So we're just gonna go see. Refresh, maybe. Reload. Show me something. Less than an hour. Give me this, please. Gib. Also, by the way, I did a completed run of Little Noah, by the way. I recorded it, but also as well. I recorded the final boss fight, so I was going to upload that to YouTube. Just an FYI. That's something that I did today. That's the tutorial code. Let's go to our real game code. So let's do the box next. So, doing things next. We will need a pix map again, because we're just using things. Did I even have a thing for it? I have current speaker tab. Oh, I didn't make a texture for this. Let's do texture. And we'll say speaker right. Because it will be the right side of the screen talking head, I guess. This probably wouldn't be a texture, I think, in like full game. It would end up being more so an animation, I think, is what we would probably have being rendered, right? Animation texture region, I guess, is what we would probably actually truly have, because you'd probably want it to be animated. Also, yes, I am still watching this weird child with a cow head. Okay, moving right along. It'd probably be an animation region. But that said, let's not get too hung up with the details. Let's assume we're just making Etrian Odyssey and everything is just static with a little bit of wiggles every now and then. So instead, it will just be a regular texture for the time being. So let's call this speaker right. Because theoretically, you probably have speaker left eventually. So with that in mind, let's call this speaker left pixmap. And then we're gonna have some constants rolled with, and this should this is like the main thing, right? So this should take up probably like a third of the screen, right? Like essentially we could cut our viewport, as it were, into thirds of like places where people would probably be able to talk to you. So let's cut it up into a third. And then its height, however, we can make it the same width as the as this technically. Like you could think of it as being extended, because a lot of visual novels generally have like the option to like hide this, so you can take pictures of like, I don't know, cats eating cake or whatever. Nekopara. Like normally there's an option to like screenshot mode, right? So typically you would think that the speaker box here actually extends beneath this, right? So we could have it do that. So that's what we'll do, which means we don't need to cast because this is already actually, no, it's not. It's still a float. Oh, no, it's not. It is an int. Oi, oi. Oi, oi, oi. Okay, so that's good. And then it is, of course, in the same format as usual. This is getting mad at me for some reason, because it's casting an int to an int and then multiplying, because operations matter. All right. So speaker left pixmap, set color. Let's set it to this for now. We could do RGB across if we did, left, center, right. Oh, I said left, when I'm thinking about right. Well, you know what? Sure. Let's do this. We'll just make left, center, right. So we'll do that, and that'll be fine. And then, of course, speaker left pixmap needs to be filled, just like our protagonists. And then speaker left. Did I not make a texture for it? Speaker name texture. I made speaker right. See, I was thinking of the right because that matched our thing, but then the brain just went to left to right. So that's what we're doing now. But this would essentially be the same though, right? For each of these, for left, center, and right, it's all the same setup code because they're all the same height and etc. You could even use this same pixmap for it, I guess, if we're just kind of blotting things out. But for now, let's get it rendered. Most importantly is the fact that it is the full height of the screen, which means that the text box needs to be rendered after it. Otherwise, it will draw it in the wrong order and we will have a bad time. So this is the speaker left. I want to make it match our paint. I want it to match paint. So speaker right pixmap. Easy. And it's gonna be blue. Sorry for going wishy-washy back and forth on that. All right, but so constants world width and essentially we wanted to slam dunk it at about 6, but there's also that 2% pushover, right? Because essentially we still have 5% on either side, because 0.3 plus 0.3 plus 0.3, unlike in real math, doesn't give you 100, it gives you 9, right? 90%. So there's still 10% left. So there's 2.5% on each side. That isn't necessarily an issue, because one could totally see, you know, a little bit of leg or ankle off to the side, right? And it wouldn't be an issue. So we could align it if we wanted to. I don't know if we want to, but we'll stick it there, I suppose. And then height-wise, it's just at 0, right? It goes from top to bottom all the way. So, crappy visual novel, click, and there we go, right? It's not 63. I want 69, actually. That's why it looks funny. Yeah, because it's like, you know, 33%. There we go. Nice. See, we still have that little bit of buffer room in there as well. But like theoretically, you know, someone's skirt or whatever is down here could, you know, poke out through here. And also this text block here, the text block, as it were, we actually probably want it to be not 0 exactly, but a little bit opaque, right? And this is mad because it's not an F. There we go. Look at that. See? Classic looking visual novel setup, right? Sayori could show up here and be very excited for some Doki Doki literature. So there we go. Got that. So let's get text onto here next, I suppose. Would be our next step, because we still have time. Just let me have my game, please. We're gonna have to wait for the install too, which is gonna be fun. Also, how big is this game again? 25 gigs. How much space do I have free? Oh, good. We're good. I have 44.5 gigs free. So we should be good. Yeah, no preload. No preload. Very, very lame. Like there's no install button, no nothing. Very sad. But, all right. So there we go. We got that. And things are rendered in the correct order. So I suppose we could put some text down on the screen, right? And this kind of gets into the conversation that we were having the other day around, like, how do you organize these things, I guess. So one thing that I kind of want to figure out is if there is a way to express our font size in a way that matches with this, you know, like to say that like this is a line height, right? Like you can fit 3 lines of text or something, and to scale the font accordingly, because there is that set font scale. So we can probably use that to some extent. It's just I don't know exactly how all the font related stuff works in this engine. And looking at various like documentation and Stack Overflow posts and such like that, it was a little bit confusing to me. I saw some words I recognized, like I saw kerning in there. I was like, my friend loves good kerning and hates bad kerning. So words are familiar to me, but you know. Anyway, we have this whole thing set up. So let's figure out our text. The other thing we could do is, you know, theoretically we could move a bunch of things, but I'll save the refactoring around like our constants here to either another time or something else for now. But let's get some text rendered. So How about we start with the speaker name? Because that's the simplest one, right? So current speaker text. And we will set that here because it's, you know, locally making sense. Let's just write this as speaker A. Right? And then essentially after we draw the speaker box, speaker name texture, this dot game dot batch dot draw this dot game dot font. Pretty sure, right? I'm not going crazy, right? That is how we do this. It's funny how I literally, yeah, it is draw. So we're going to give it the text, and we're going to give it an X and Y location to stick it in there. So give it the current speaker text, and then we need to stick the X in the appropriate place, which theoretically, right, you could give it the same thing, and if it's a nice world, then this would work, right? It's not happy about this. Let's see here. What is normally what this is? So this is draw batch sequence floats. Oh, I didn't give it the batch. Oh wait. Oh, that's why I'm going wrong this way. It should be font.draw. There we go. So that does that. Let's see how bad that looks. Shall we? Yeah, exactly. Very good. So it's on the wrong side. Like it's got it upside down, or like, you know, like it's put the top left corner of the font at that XY coordinate, which means we need to bump the Y up by a good amount, right? By basically one line height, it looked like almost, right? And I wonder if there is a good way to do that. Let's find out using the glyph layout stuff. We'll explore this together. And this is also something we can probably compute ahead of time. But so we set the font type, and we set the text, current speaker text, and then we can query it for things. So glyph layout height, right? So this. And also we probably want to give it some buffer room there. Like you can see it, how we have those slightly different things that it's like right along the bottom here. So we probably want to, I suppose it's left aligned most of the time, right? It's not centered. Though we could center it. But we want this to be in the center Y-wise here, right? Like we want it there. So we need to figure that out. So it's going to be, let's see. It's going to be where this one is, plus some other stuff. Let's do it as, let's see. Really, what do I want here? So the world height at the appropriate place, at the top of the text box thing, and then really the speaker name texture is also important for us, right? Like, it's essentially this thing's height divided by 2, which is getting upset with me about some integer division. So I did that. Plus the height. I think that will put it where we want it. A little bit too high. Hold on. Height divided by 2. There we go. That looks a lot nicer, doesn't it? So there's speaker A. And we could give it a little bit of moving, you know, let's just give it a little bit of space because it has no border space at all. So let's go ahead and do like, let's see, I wonder if there's a like single character glyph width, you know what I mean? I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna divide the width of the glyph by the total glyph count, because I think that should give me one glyph, or one glyph's worth of stuff. So essentially an indent of one character. And it does. There we go. And that looks a lot nicer, right? As far as like, there it is. So as long as the names aren't too long, it won't cause problems. So, not bad, right? That said, I don't want to make glyphs all the time. Or rather, I don't want to make the glyph inside the render, because this is kind of annoying and silly. So, instead, let's move this around. Say, here's my glyph layout. Just make this consistent with everything else. It is now 9 o'clock. I want to go check the Steam page, but I'll complete this thought at the very least. Because I'm only going to have one, because I'm pretty sure that we can reuse it just with the set text all the time and such like that, as long as everything is kind of normalized ahead of time. Yes! Install! Yep. Thank you. I totally read that. All right, so while that installs, so we have that. We have that. So I guess next we will set the text. Set the text for the text box, right? So this is our scrolling buffer, or our scrolling text, right? I should say. So this is our text box. What did I name it? Sorry. Current speaker text. No, current text. This should say... This is a bad name. This should be current speaker name text. Right? That's how I'm using it? Yes. Okay, so let's call this current text. And maybe rename this currently spoken text. Kind of feels wrong. It's not necessarily spoken. I could literally just call it scrolling text, I guess, technically, because there's only one set of scrolling text in this. It just feels a little bit wrong, but dialogue. Oh man, you and your words. Yeah, dialogue is a good one. Who's the native English speaker here? Dialogue is a good one for it. Okay, so let's call it dialogue. And then let's set it up, right? So let's say dialogue equals new scrolling text. And it's going to have the text to display, which, you know, would be whatever we would load from the like current speaker talking and such. Oh, here we go. Text speed to start with. And I'm going to go refactor that real quick. Because our, right here, our static final texts are declared here. But truly, I would rather have them declared in my constants folder. Because that just makes sense, doesn't it? So go back to the starting screen and let's go ahead and modify these to say constants.text speed. Constants, thank you, dot text speed fast. Did I not save? I did. Are you just mad? Has private access. Yeah, we'll change that, don't worry. Honestly, we can probably just, given how, you know, this one isn't that crazy, we can just go in and replace these, I think. So constants and remove the private because these are public. Thank you very much. I mean, so I used to help my friend. Well, I helped a lot of people in college. I helped run. God, I can't speak. 2 student organizations that were CS related, and so I helped out a lot of people with their homework. And finding the right metaphor to use for people was always a good time. And one of my best friends really explain object-oriented programming to him in terms of like poop, animals having sex, and like other nonsense like that no normal professor would ever use, stuck in his brain a lot better. So I would use a lot of analogies around that. So there was a lot of things that wouldn't be repeated in polite company and that kind of thing. But, it worked well. It stuck in his head enough. Okay, we're good there. So let's go back to our reading screen. We now have constant speed normal. This text here, this theoretically should be loaded, right? From whatever dialogue for the chapter it is. So I'm just gonna I don't know, or scene would make sense. Let's call it scene, and then let's just do something. This would be loaded from I don't know, a notepad document, a text file or something, right, for internationalization purposes, etc., etc. But let's just say that there's dialogue in here, right, that has been loaded. And this isn't just a... Should probably be, an array or something, right? I just don't want to deal with it that much yet, I guess. So I think, oh god, it's been a while since I used just a bare ass array. Normally we, do the other things. So let's just do that, I guess. And we'll say, this is a new array, and I'm gonna add some stuff to it. I don't think this is really the proper way to organize this stuff and whatnot. But for now, this is what I'm gonna do. Oh god. Yes, I know what you are. Just give me some garbage, please. Yep. Alright, that works. Why do you include new lines like that? How does that... Why does that paste new lines? That's weird. Don't do that. That's really odd. Why would you do that? Okay, so there's my horrendously long piece of dialogue, I guess. I'm just gonna have, get dialogue page X, right? Let's do page index. String. This is basically just a wrapper around that. Again, I don't think this is really the proper way to set this up. It's just the first thing that's kind of popping to mind at the moment. So this is what I'm rolling with, because I just want to abstract this text away so it's not in directly in the reading screen. So let's say that this is that, etc., etc. You'd probably say that we're going to load this particular chapter or something through some sort of menu. I don't know. Again, not thinking too deep right now. But, yeah. Yeah, see, scene is a... I don't know, I kind of feel like scene's a terrible name. But, that's okay for now. Current scene is the current scene, and this would that can just start as nothing, right? I think I'd rather actually do this. I'm sorry, like, I shouldn't be implementing this. It's just, it's coming to me, so I want to write it down as I do it, you know? Yeah, scene's not a good name, but, you know. Math.clamp? No. I think, is it like GDX dot? There's a clamp function that I've seen floating around before. I don't know where it was coming from, but I guess I can. Oh wait, mathutils.clamp. Here we go. Clamp value min max. Clamp value min and where's the length? Count? Size. Thank you. Is this a -1? No. Okay. But yeah, clamp that. Result of map clamp is ignored. That's fine? Probably? Oh, no, it's not. Should be that. Yeah. Get dialogue. So like you advance, right? So like first thing would say ... right? And then they click and this would cause that to advance and then we get the dialogue on each scene for whatever it is how I kind of envision that going. So let's say there's that, there's a scene. We don't want that to be a local variable anymore. Yada, 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 yada. This would be the get dialogue. And then we can finally say game.font.draw for the current batch. The current scene get dialogue at the appropriate x coordinate and y coordinate, which should be sync here. It's current speaker box, speaker name. Where's my other bit? Sorry. Oh, there it is. Text box. Let's move this up then. I imagine that my Steam game has finished downloading, but I want to finish my thought. Okay. I know I waited literally all day to play this game, and I took today off from work because I wanted to play it all day, but I want to finish this first. And also, this is the wrong. No, this is the right place. All right. So do that. So the x coordinate is going to be here, plus a glyph, probably. Also, the glyph layout's already made, right? Yes, it is. So I can kill that. So instead, I can do this. So this is going to be set to the current dialogue, because we need the glyph layout to be set to the text that we care about in order to get the appropriate computations for it. And just like the previous one, for the x-coordinate, I would like to indent it by the same amount, by one glyph. And then for the height, we want to indent it. Well, we want it at the same place, or here, and then bump it up by the height of the text box texture. So it goes whomp, and that'll be the starting Y plus glyph layout dot height. I think we want. We might want a full one here. Let's see what this looks like real quick. I'm missing a bit here. You know, a return statement would help. I agree, IDE. All right. Yeah, it's too much. Where's our reading screen? Also, I'm going to just before we do this, if gdx.input is touched, current scene dot advance. Thanks. Ooh, I exploded it. I don't think my clamp did what I wanted it to. Scene. Sorry. Clamp the value between min and max. Off by 1 errors. Okay, it's weird to me that's not showing the ... first. I wonder if the get touch, like... Well, we can find out. Hold on. I wonder if it's just... It's doing it too much kind of thing. Hi. Bye. Well, it... Okay, so that one changed, but it's definitely... it's like picking up on the previous event, I think, and doing some weird stuff. We're not going to troubleshoot that right now. I just wanted to get it, you know, to an appropriate place. So rather than doing this, I'm just going to have it start on that screen, on like the long one, so that we have real text. Also, fuck you, IDE. Where was I? Current scene, get dialogue. Yeah, so like this one feels kind of weird because I feel like however long it is going to matter. Because as you can see, it goes across the page, right? So that's in the right space to start, but making it wrap, I think, is probably more complicated. And I don't know how to do it, and that's probably like a whole thing on its own. So I don't think we're going to try to do that tonight, and we're probably going to stop it here. But obviously that's a very important part for a visual novel, right? To be able to wrap the freaking text in a nice way. But that said, I don't know about you, but I think we made pretty good progress here today. We have text that scrolls, right? Although I didn't... our current scene dialogue is being written. It's not properly scrolling, right? Which we would have to deal with differently. But it's fine. It is what it is. So what I am going to do now is get off lorem ipsum. We're going to pause this text, and we're going to check Steam. And Fate Samurai Remnant is ready to play, which is exactly what I want. I am going... Well, yes. Yes. There are foundations to go through, but for a like one-off stream with like about 10 minutes of planning at most, basically, like the conversation you and I were having was the planning that went into the stream. I think we made pretty good progress on just getting stuff there. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of things to work out, to figure out, as well as just like deciding how to properly model something like this. I think it's kind of important to do. There's also other important things, right? Like making sure that they don't advance the scene if the text is currently scrolling, like it hasn't finished displaying, like a whole bunch of stuff for like quality of life things and all kinds of considerations to be done. But I do like that it's coming together, and that, you know, our paint drawing, it's pretty good, pretty accurate to this. So feels good. Anyway, I am going to stop and start the stream because I do not want to have to render video tonight. I'm also going to go to the bathroom and like get something that isn't water to drink. And then I will be back with Fate Samurai Remnant. So if you would like to see the game that I've been waiting all day for, please return to this stream in about a minute. But I'm going to stop it and start it because I want to cut the VOD so I don't have to render and cut the video myself later on. So I will see you all soon. So be our B.